The new bill to ban money just passed. Alert. While the nation debated headlines, a committee vote occurred after midnight. Not a single news anchor mentioned it. The framework is now in place. Not to make cash illegal, but to make using it impossible. The infrastructure has been built. The timeline has been set. Your bank account, your savings, your business transactions, all of it visible, trackable, and soon controllable. The digital cage door is closing, and most people have no idea it's even there. Welcome to Boring Economic. Now, before we go further into what just happened in that committee room, let me ask you something. The way I'd ask my father, you've lived long enough to see currencies change, policies shift, and governments make promises they didn't keep. So do me a favor. If you value knowing what's actually happening with your money before everyone else finds out, hit that subscribe button, not because it's trendy, but because economic intelligence isn't entertainment, it's survival. And one more thing, drop a comment below and tell me, where are you watching this from? What city? What country? Because what's coming isn't just an American problem. Now let's get into what this legislation actually means. The committee room was nearly empty. It was 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday night. Most Americans were asleep, while a handful of legislators voted on a bill that would fundamentally alter how money works in this country. The bill passed, not with fanfare, not with debate, but with the quiet efficiency of something that had been planned for years. The official name doesn't matter. What matters is what it does, and more importantly, what it doesn't say. Nowhere in the 247-page document does it say cash is illegal. That would be too obvious, too alarming. Instead, the legislation does something far more clever. It builds the infrastructure that makes physical money obsolete. Think of it this way. They're not banning roads, they're just making it impossible to drive on them. The first major provision requires every business in America to report digital transactions to the IRS in real time. Not at the end of the month, not quarterly, instantly. The moment a customer swipes a card, the government knows. The amount, the location, the merchant, the time. All of it logged, all of it permanent. For business owners, this creates an immediate operational challenge. New software systems must be installed. Compliance officers may need to be hired. Every digital payment infrastructure must connect directly to federal reporting systems. The cost of this compliance falls on businesses, not the government. Small businesses will feel this pressure first. A local coffee shop that processes 50 transactions a day now reports 50 times to federal authorities. A freelance consultant who invoices clients through digital platforms now has every payment tracked and categorized. The gray economy, the informal exchanges that keep small commerce alive, begins to disappear. But the real foundation of this system isn't the reporting requirements. It's what comes next. The bill allocates funding for something called Central Bank Digital Currency Infrastructure, CBDC. Most people have never heard this term, but it represents the most significant change to money since the Federal Reserve was created in 1913. A CBDC is not just digital banking, it's programmable currency, money that can be coded, controlled, and modified by the issuing authority. The legislation doesn't mandate the use of CBDC yet. It simply builds the roads, installs the cameras, and sets up the toll booths. The actual requirement to use this system will come later, probably during the next crisis. Financial emergency, cyber attack, economic collapse, whatever the trigger, the infrastructure will already be in place. And this infrastructure connects directly to something that already exists, FedNow. The Federal Reserve launched this instant payment system in 2023. They marketed it as a way to get paychecks faster, to send money to family instantly, to modernize banking. What they didn't advertise was the surveillance capability. FedNow allows the central bank to see every transaction in real time. Not just banks seeing their own customers, but the Federal Reserve seeing everything. The old banking system was slow, decentralized, and relatively private. Transactions took days to clear. Banks operated independently. The Federal Reserve had oversight, but not omniscience. FedNow changes that completely. Speed equals visibility. Instant payments mean instant data. And that data flows directly to the institution that controls the currency supply. Every coffee purchase, every rent payment, every donation to a political cause, every ounce of silver bought online, visible, recorded, permanent. The third component of the legislation targets physical currency itself, not by banning it outright, but by making high-denomination bills disappear. There's a growing movement in Washington to eliminate the $100 bill. The official reason given is crime prevention. They claim that only criminals and tax evaders use large bills, but the statistics tell a different story. The $100 bill represents approximately 80% of all physical currency in circulation. It's how ordinary Americans store value outside the banking system. A family keeps $2,000 and hundreds in a safe at home, just in case. A small business owner maintains cash reserves to cover payroll during a banking disruption. Elderly citizens who lived through financial crises keep physical bills as a hedge against system failure. Remove the $100 bill, and storing significant amounts of cash becomes physically impractical. Try keeping $10,000 in $20 bills. It's 500 individual notes. Bulky, difficult to secure, easy to miscount. Now imagine $50,000 in ones and fives. Impossible. This is economic engineering. Make physical money so inconvenient that people voluntarily choose digital alternatives. The legislation also includes tax incentives for businesses that go completely cashless, reduced reporting burdens for digital-only operations, lower transaction fees for electronic payments, regulatory advantages for companies that refuse physical currency. Business owners face a choice: accept the carrots being offered for going cashless, or bear the increasing costs and complications of handling physical money. Most will choose the path of least resistance. And with each business that stops accepting cash, the infrastructure for a cashless society strengthens. The committee vote was just one step, but it was the critical step. The foundation has been poured, the walls are going up, and most people have no idea the building even exists. There's a system running right now that most people don't know exists. It's not hidden, it's not secret. It's just invisible to those who aren't looking, and it's watching every dollar move through the American economy. In July 2023, the Federal Reserve flipped a switch. No announcement on the evening news, no press conference with dramatic music, just a quiet launch of something called FedNow. The marketing was brilliant. Get your paycheck instantly. Send money to friends in seconds. No more waiting for payments to clear. Convenience, speed, modernization. That's what they sold. But what they built was something entirely different. FedNow isn't just faster banking. It's a real-time financial surveillance grid. Here's how the old system worked. When someone made a purchase with a debit card, the transaction entered a queue. It moved through the merchant's bank, then through processing networks, then through clearinghouses. The process took 24 to 72 hours. During that time, the transaction existed in a kind of financial fog. Multiple institutions handled pieces of the information, but no single entity saw everything in real time. The Federal Reserve had oversight, but it was retrospective. They could analyze patterns after the fact, but not watch transactions as they happened. Privacy existed in the delay. FedNow eliminates the delay. Transactions settle in seconds, and every single one flows through Federal Reserve infrastructure. The central bank doesn't just have oversight anymore, it has a live feed. Imagine a highway system where every car has a tracker, and one central office watches every vehicle on every road simultaneously. That's FedNow. But the implications go far deeper than simple monitoring. Because once you can see money moving in real time, you can control it in real time. A business owner in Ohio sells equipment to a customer in Texas. The payment processes through FedNow. Instantly, the IRS knows the transaction occurred, the amount, the parties involved, the nature of the business. No delay, no filing quarterly reports, no waiting for annual tax returns. The government sees the income before the business owner even finishes the sale. Now, multiply that by every business transaction in America. Millions per hour, all visible, all categorized, all permanent. The legislation passed last week makes this level of reporting mandatory, not optional, not for businesses above a certain size, mandatory for everyone. And the threshold keeps dropping. 5 years ago, banks had to report transactions over $10,000. And that made sense. Large cash movements could indicate illegal activity. It was a reasonable safeguard. Then the threshold dropped to $600. $600. A teenager selling a used laptop to a neighbor triggers a federal report. A freelance graphic designer receiving payment for a logo design gets flagged. A family selling furniture at a garage sale crosses the reporting threshold after a few items. This isn't about catching criminals anymore. It's about eliminating financial privacy entirely. The informal economy, the cash transactions that happen between neighbors and friends, the small trades that keep communities functioning. All of it becomes visible. All of it becomes taxable. All of it becomes controlled. But there's another component to this infrastructure that most people haven't noticed yet. The elimination of high-denomination currency. On the surface, it sounds reasonable. Nobody needs a $100 bill except criminals. That's the talking point. But look at the numbers. The $100 bill represents 80% of physical U.S. currency in circulation, not in transactions, in storage. People hold hundreds because they're the most efficient way to store value outside the digital system. $10,000 in hundreds is a small stack, fits in a safe, easy to secure. Try storing $10,000 in 20s, 500 bills, 3 times the volume. Now try ones and fives, physically impractical. This is the strategy. Don't ban cash. Just make it impossible to hold significant amounts. A business that keeps $10,000 in emergency cash reserves can do that with hundreds. Remove hundreds, and suddenly that same business needs a much larger safe, more security, more complexity. Eventually, it's easier to just keep the money in a bank account, which brings everything back into the digital grid, where it can be tracked, where it can be taxed, where it can be controlled. Several European countries have already done this. Sweden eliminated large denomination notes years ago. Cash transactions dropped by 70% within 3 years. Not because people stopped wanting privacy, but because using cash became so inconvenient that digital became the only practical option. The United States is following the same playbook, but with one critical addition: the integration of FedNow with CBDC infrastructure. Right now, digital dollars in a bank account are still relatively private between you and your bank. The government can request information, but it requires warrants, legal processes, institutional cooperation. There are still barriers. CBDC removes those barriers entirely, because with a central bank digital currency, there is no intermediary, no commercial bank standing between you and the Federal Reserve. The government issues the currency directly, holds the ledger directly, sees every transaction directly. No requests needed, no warrants required. It's their money, in their system, on their servers. And the infrastructure for the system is being built right now, under the banner of modernization, under the promise of convenience, under the cover of legislation that most people will never read. FedNow is already operational. The reporting requirements are being phased in. High denomination bills are being quietly removed from circulation. Each piece of the puzzle clicks into place. And when the final piece arrives, when the crisis comes that makes CBDC adoption seem necessary, the infrastructure will already be waiting. The rails will already be laid. The surveillance grid will already be operational. All that will remain is flipping the switch from optional to mandatory, and most people won't even notice it happening, because they've already been using the system for years. Money has always had one fundamental characteristic. Once it's in your hand, it's yours to use however you choose. A dollar earned 50 years ago could buy anything a dollar could buy. No conditions, no restrictions, no expiration date. The person holding the dollar decided what to do with it. That principle is about to end, because the money coming isn't just digital, it's programmable. And programmable money isn't really yours at all. Imagine receiving your paycheck on Friday, $1,000 deposited into your digital wallet, but there's a message attached. This payment expires in 30 days, unspent funds will be deleted. Not transferred, not held. Deleted. The money literally disappears if you don't spend it fast enough. This isn't science fiction. This is a feature explicitly discussed in central bank digital currency research papers. The technical term is demurrage. The practical term is use it or lose it. The economic justification is stimulus. During a recession, governments want people spending money, not saving it. Consumer spending drives economic activity. Savings slow down the velocity of money. In the old system, governments couldn't force people to spend. If someone wanted to keep cash under a mattress, there was nothing authorities could do about it. But with programmable currency, the government doesn't need to force anything. They just write the expiration date into the code. The money enforces its own rules. Spend by this date, or watch your purchasing power vanish. This destroys something fundamental to wealth building: the ability to delay gratification. In every civilization, prosperity has been built on the ability to save, to accumulate, to plan for the future. A farmer saves seeds from this harvest to plant next season. A craftsman saves earnings from summer to survive winter. A family saves for years to buy a home. Savings represent deferred consumption, the willingness to sacrifice today for security tomorrow. Programmable currency with expiration dates makes that impossible. Every dollar becomes perishable. Like fruit that rots, money that expires forces constant consumption. No long-term planning, no generational wealth building, no financial independence. Just an endless cycle of earn and spend, earn and spend. But expiration dates are only the beginning, because programmable currency can include restrictions on what it can purchase. The code can specify permitted transaction categories. Here's how it works in practice. The government issues a stimulus payment. $1,000 appears in your digital wallet. But embedded in the currency is a smart contract. This money cannot be used to purchase firearms, ammunition, precious metals, or cryptocurrency. You try to buy gold coins at a local dealer. Transaction declined, not because you lack funds, but because the money itself has been programmed to refuse that purchase. You try to buy silver online, same result. The currency recognizes the merchant category code and blocks the transaction. The money makes the decision, not you. This is already happening in trial programs. China's digital yuan includes spending restrictions. Certain stimulus payments could only be used for specific goods. Food, yes. Rent, yes. Transportation, yes. Savings vehicles, no. International transfers, no. Cryptocurrency, no. The government determines acceptable use, and the money enforces it automatically. No human intervention required. No appeals process, no exceptions. The code is the law, And in the United States, similar frameworks are being developed right now. The legislation passed last week allocates funding for digital wallet infrastructure. Every citizen will eventually have a wallet linked to their Social Security number. This wallet becomes the only method to receive government benefits, tax refunds, Social Security payments, unemployment benefits, stimulus checks, all delivered exclusively through the digital wallet, which requires digital ID verification to access. This creates a coercion mechanism that's almost impossible to resist. A retiree who spent 40 years paying into Social Security wants their monthly payment. The government says, download the app, verify your identity, accept the digital wallet. The retiree can refuse, but the refusal means no payment, no Social Security check, no Medicare reimbursements, nothing. The choice becomes comply or starve. And once someone is in the system, they're subject to all the rules embedded in the programmable currency, including restrictions they might not even know exist until they try to make a purchase. But the most disturbing aspect of programmable money isn't what it can prevent, it's what it can enable. Negative interest rates. In traditional banking, there's a natural floor on how low interest rates can go. 0. A bank can reduce interest to 0, but they can't go negative, because at negative rates, people would just withdraw their cash and store it physically. If a bank charges 5% annual interest to hold your money, you'd pull it out immediately. Cash under a mattress loses nothing. Cash in a negative rate account loses 5% per year. The choice is obvious. But in a fully digital system, there's no cash to withdraw. There is no mattress option. The money exists only as data on servers controlled by the central bank. And if the central bank implements negative 5% interest, account holders watch their balance decrease every month, not from spending, from existing. The government charges you for the privilege of holding their currency. This forces one of two choices: spend the money immediately, even on things you don't need, or invest it in markets the government approves, like stocks or bonds. Either way, the money keeps moving through the system. Velocity increases, tax revenue increases, but individual wealth decreases. This is the ultimate tool for central planners: the ability to force economic behavior without passing laws. No legislation required, no votes needed. Just adjust the interest rate in the currency code and watch people respond exactly as predicted. The World Economic Forum has published research on these mechanisms. They don't hide it. They call it economic behavior modification through monetary design. The International Monetary Fund has released handbooks on CBDC implementation. Over 100 countries are currently developing or testing digital currencies. This is a coordinated global rollout, not a conspiracy, a publicly stated agenda. The infrastructure is being built simultaneously across continents. The goal is interoperability, a digital dollar that can seamlessly transact with a digital euro, a digital yuan, a digital yen, one global ledger, one system of control, one set of rules that apply everywhere. No offshore accounts, no Swiss banks, no financial privacy anywhere on Earth, just the grid and everyone on it, visible, trackable, controllable. The legislation passed last week brings the United States one major step closer to this reality. The infrastructure is funded, the timelines are set, the technical specifications are being finalized. All that remains is the trigger event, the crisis that makes adoption seem necessary, a pandemic, a war, a cyber attack that wipes out traditional banking systems. Whatever the catalyst, the response is already prepared. For your safety, for your security, we're implementing the new digital dollar. It's temporary, just until the crisis passes, but temporary measures rarely expire. And once everyone's wealth exists only as programmable code on government servers, the cage door closes, and there's no way out. There's a moment in every major transition where the door is still open, where the old system still functions, and the new system hasn't yet become mandatory. That moment is right now. But the window is closing faster than most people realize. The target date circulating in policy documents is 2026. That's when full CBDC implementation is projected to become operational in the United States. Not optional, not experimental, mandatory, which means the time to prepare is measured in months, not years. But preparation requires understanding the actual risks, not the theoretical concerns, the concrete vulnerabilities that come with a fully digital financial system. And the first vulnerability is catastrophic, single point of failure. Every system has weak points. But a cashless society has only one system, with one central point of control. If that system goes down, everything stops. Not just banking, everything. Grocery stores can't process payments, gas stations can't sell fuel, hospitals can't verify insurance, employers can't pay workers, the entire economy freezes. The system can go down in multiple ways: a cyber attack, a solar flare that disrupts electrical grids, a software glitch in central banking infrastructure, even a natural disaster that knocks out regional data centers. Any of these events in a cashless society creates immediate economic paralysis. Physical cash works during a blackout. A store owner can still sell goods. A customer can still buy food. The transaction happens, power or no power. Silver works during a hurricane. Gold works during a grid failure. But digital dollars only work when the servers are running. The lights must be on. The internet must be connected. The systems must be operational. One disruption, and millions of people can't access their wealth. Not because it's gone, but because it's trapped in a system that's temporarily offline. Except temporary can become weeks, and weeks without access to money means people can't eat. This isn't theoretical. In 2021, a software update at a major payment processor caused outages across multiple countries. For 6 hours, millions of people couldn't make purchases. Credit cards declined, digital payments failed, ATMs went offline. 6 hours. Now imagine 6 days or 6 weeks. In a world where cash still exists, this is an inconvenience. In a cashless world, it's a catastrophe. But system failures aren't the only risk. There's something more immediate, more targeted, more politically dangerous. Financial deplatforming. February 2022, Canada. Truck drivers organized a protest against vaccine mandates. Thousands of citizens donated to support the protest. Small amounts, $50, $100. Peaceful donations to a legal protest. The Canadian government's response was unprecedented. They didn't arrest the donors. They didn't charge them with crimes. They simply froze their bank accounts. No trial, no warrant, no judicial process, just a list of names and a keystroke. Suddenly, people who donated to a cause the government disapproved of couldn't access their own money, couldn't buy groceries, couldn't pay rent, couldn't purchase fuel. Their wealth still existed, but they were locked out of the system that held it. This is the future of financial control in a CBDC environment. Dissent becomes economically punishable instantly. No lengthy legal proceedings. No constitutional protections. Just code enforcement. If the system identifies you as a problematic actor, your wallet shuts off, and there's no cash alternative to fall back on. Because cash no longer exists, you're completely dependent on a system that has decided you're unworthy of participation. This isn't speculation. It's already happened in a G7 nation. And the infrastructure being built in the United States has the same capabilities. Real-time transaction monitoring, centralized control, instant enforcement. The only question is, when will it be used? And against whom? Which brings the discussion to alternatives. Because while the digital system is being constructed, other options still exist. Physical precious metals, gold and silver, these aren't relics of the past. They're the only financial instruments that exist outside the digital grid. Gold has always been the settlement layer for nations. Central banks hold gold reserves. International debts are settled in gold. It's the tier 1 asset for institutional players. Silver is the tier 1 asset for individuals. It's affordable. It's divisible. It's recognizable. And most importantly, it's completely private. A silver coin doesn't broadcast your location when you spend it. It doesn't require internet connectivity. It can't be hacked. It can't be frozen. It can't be programmed to expire. It simply is a store of value that exists in physical reality, not on a government server. As the digital control grid tightens, the premium on privacy increases. People will pay more for silver, not just for its metal value, but for its freedom value, the ability to transact without surveillance, the ability to save without permission, the ability to preserve wealth without government interference. This is why silver prices have been climbing, not because of industrial demand alone, but because informed individuals recognize what's coming, and they're positioning accordingly. But precious metals aren't the only preparation. There's also the local network, the community of people who still value exchange outside the digital system. Farmers who sell produce for cash, craftsmen who trade services for physical payment, neighbors who barter goods without digital records. These networks still exist, but they're shrinking. As more businesses go cashless, as more transactions become tracked, the informal economy contracts. Building relationships now with people who understand the value of private exchange creates resilience. The mechanic who will fix your car for silver, a farmer who will sell eggs for cash, a neighbor who will trade skills without involving digital payment systems. These connections, in a fully controlled digital economy, become invaluable because they represent freedom of exchange without oversight. Then there's the question of timing. The legislation has passed committee, the infrastructure is being funded, the timeline points to 2026, but mandatory adoption requires a catalyst. History shows that governments rarely implement unpopular financial controls during stable times. They wait for crisis. The next major economic disruption, whatever form it takes, will likely be the trigger. A banking collapse, a currency crisis, cyber attack on financial infrastructure, a geopolitical conflict that destabilizes markets. Any of these events creates the perfect excuse. For your protection, we're activating the emergency digital currency system. It's temporary, just until stability returns. But once implemented, these systems never go back. Income tax was temporary during World War I. It's still here. The Patriot Act was temporary after September 11th. Most provisions remain permanent. Emergency measures become permanent features. So the preparation window is now. While the old system still functions, while cash is still accepted, while alternatives still exist. The practical steps are straightforward. Maintain some physical cash, enough for a few weeks of basic expenses, small bills, ones, fives, 20s. Not as an investment, but as a functional backup. Convert a portion of savings into physical precious metals, not all, but enough to preserve wealth outside the digital system. Silver for practical transactions, gold for larger value storage. Build local networks of trusted individuals who value private exchange, people who understand what's coming and are preparing similarly. And most importantly, become comfortable operating outside the digital convenience. Use cash when possible. Support businesses that still accept it. Practice transactions that don't leave digital footprints. Because every time someone chooses the digital option, they vote for the system being built. Every swipe of a card, every tap of a phone, every QR code scanned strengthens the infrastructure of control. But every cash transaction, every physical exchange, every private trade preserves the alternative. The legislation is passed. The machine is operational. The timeline is accelerating. But the door is still open, for now. The question isn't whether this system is coming. The technical infrastructure proves it is. The question is, will individuals choose to exit while they still can? Or will they stay comfortable in the digital convenience until the door locks behind them? Because once it locks, there's no key, no exit, no alternative, just the grid, and everyone on it.